Welcome to Performance Under Pressure, where we talk to experts in the world of work about how to live and work well under the stress and pressure we can't avoid. Although I think our guest today is going to tell us there are some of those pressures that we could actually avoid if we had systems to do so. I will tell you, our guest today changed my life. It took out of my brain all of those things I was trying to hold on to with white knuckles and put them into a system where I can let go of this and actually get things done. Please welcome to the show, Maura Thomas. Thank you for coming and being with us today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. I'm so happy to hear when my
Oh,
work people.
it it is, I mean, I am not kidding, folks. It is magic. Magic what Maura has to offer. And we're going to jump right into two tips, and then I want you to tell us a little bit about why this work is so exciting to you. It's really exciting to me as well. Two tips, one for individuals, one for people to use with their teams. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, two tips. One is you can only be distracted if you allow
Mm-hmm.
yourself to be distracted. We have the power and we just don't claim
um,
it.
truth, very much so, truth. And what's your second one for people to use with teams?
Second tip is that there needs to be some sort of emergency or time sensitive communication channel. Because if
Mm,
any emergency or any time sensitive message could come in any form from
hmm.
text or chat or email or anything, then you have to treat all of them like they are. So I
Right,
know we're going to dive into them. So
right.
I will
And
pause
those
there.
are, I can't wait to delve into both of those. But first, tell us why why you found yourself giving these life-changing strategies to people. How did you get here and why is it such a work of passion for you?
Yeah. Well, my whole professional career has been in the productivity industry. Right out of college, I got a job working for a company that sold paper-based planners and
Hmm.
training. And I had some great mentors there. And I worked there for almost a decade. And part of my job was to learn about the industry and what everyone was teaching. And so when I left that job after 10 years there, I had so much knowledge about personal performance and
Hmm.
individual productivity and team productivity. Um, but I think really I started my business doing it because, well, one, because I felt like people needed the information, but also because I just saw people running themselves ragged. They love
Yes.
their jobs, right? They love
Hmm.
their jobs. They have busy lives by choice, right?
Hmm.
Driven, motivated, ambitious people with really unique, wonderful gifts to bring the world. And they were very successful, but just exhausted.
Hmm.
And I'm just so passionate about sharing the message that exhaustion is optional. And you can Yeah, and you can
Yeah.
bring yes, you can bring your gifts to the world in a way that motivates and inspires and
Mm.
energizes you instead of in a way that overwhelms and stresses and exhausts you.
And you provide just that. And one of the things that has always honestly stressed me out about productivity systems is that I felt judged by them in some manner, right? Like you aren't doing this right. Uh, but also I couldn't figure out, like it was almost more of a distraction to try to use all of these things than just dealing with the distraction of the things coming in.
Mm.
And I it was a real eye opener when we had a conversation and you did a class really talking about those distractions and what it is causing and costing us. So
Yeah.
I love that tip. You can only be distracted if you allow yourself to be distracted. Let's dive in. What do you mean by
Yeah. So a lot of people, we make what I call unconscious calculations. This is what I see in my
that? Hmm.
unconscious calculations like, it's crazy busy all day long and everybody needs me. And so the
Hmm.
only time I can get my real work done is
Hmm.
when people aren't bothering me, right? There's no time to do my real work during the
Yes.
day because it's so busy and everybody needs me and there's so much going on and there's back-to-back meetings. And
Hmm.
so then the so then it's like, well, the only time that people aren't bothering me is early in the morning or late at night or weekends
Right.
or holidays, right? And so, and I call it an unconscious calculation because I don't think anybody wakes up on Monday morning and says, I can't wait to work 80 hours this week and work
Right.
night and work all weekend too, right?
Yes.
Nobody, that's
Mm.
not what we want. It just feels like we have to do that. But the truth
Right.
is, we can become empowered during our workday
Hmm.
to manage our attention so that we can get our important work done in a thoughtful way. And there's a few strategies for doing that. But the first one is that we need to control our environment, right?
Hmm.
People, so for example, you need to carve out that time. If you have an office with, if you work with other people around, or if you work at home and other people are around, you need to have some sort of signal that says, please don't interrupt me right now. And if
Hmm.
people ignore your signal, then you have to enforce your signal, right? So there's
Right.
another unconscious calculation that people make. Well, I close my door, but people just knock and walk through it anyway, so that doesn't work. Well, no, you can make it work, right?
Yeah.
If you want your closed door to mean please don't interrupt me, when people knock on the door and say, hey, do you have a minute? Your response in that moment needs to be, actually, I'm really sorry, I can't right now. Could you please come back when the door is open?
Open. Yes.
Right? And it doesn't, if you don't have a door, that's not a problem. It could be anything you want it to be. It could be a sign, it could be a
Hmm.
flag on your cubicle wall, on your desk monitor, your computer monitor. It could be, I have a client who works at home. Kids are at home often, like especially in the summer, and
Mm.
signal is baseball cap or no baseball cap, right?
Ah. Oh.
So if the baseball cap is on, dad is home and you're welcome to talk to me. If the baseball cap
Huh.
is off, dad is at work and you better be bleeding if you're going to interrupt me.
Yes.
So the signal could be anything. It could be a scarf, it could be a lamp, it could be anything you want it to be. But the point is, you can control your environment. So instead of
Mm.
just throwing up your hands and saying, well, I just have to respond to everyone, you don't. Now, whether you use your do not disturb signal for 15, 20 minutes every hour, 30 minutes
Hmm.
every hour, or
Hmm.
whether you do it for 60, 75, 90 minutes, couple, two, three times a day, the frequency and the duration is up to you, but the point is you have to carve out that time during your workday to do your work.
Right.
You can do it. You can take back control. So your other people are the first problem.
Oh, yes, other people are our first problem. There are other problems, though, and I think my biggest one is email. That constant, like, I could spend my entire day just dealing with my email. Not anymore, because I follow what Maura told me. But how do we that's another barrier, right? Like, we have to draw some boundaries around the asking for our time in
Yeah,
that manner.
right. So the second issue besides other people is technology. And that's just really other people on the other end of technology, right? But
Right.
it's our technology. And so, but here's the thing, if you, regardless of where you work,
Mhm.
your emails, your chats, your text messages, your phone calls, those can only interrupt you. if you allow those to interrupt
Mm,
you. So, for
mhm.
example, you could, and I recommend that you do, when, especially when you are in that sort of, I need to get my work done, you need to either close your email or if or in some other way stop those messages from coming. Sometimes the
Mhm,
thing that we need to do relies on our email, or maybe the thing that we need to do is our email,
mhm.
but you can't make progress on the old messages in your inbox if every time you read a message a new message comes in, right?
Right.
So if you're doing something entirely different, just close your email client altogether. If you need to have your email open, although I would say even if no new messages are coming in, sometimes our email inbox is distracting anyway.
Yes.
Um, but at the very least, either stop the automatic messages from coming in. Like if you're using Outlook and an Exchange server, you can say work in offline mode, for
Mhm.
example. Or you could, if you're using Gmail or some other client, you could pause inbox
Yep.
so that no new messages come in. You should certainly shut off the notifications that tell you that you have new email. Because let's face it, Eliz, do we really need a notification to tell us that we have new email?
No, because it happens all of the time.
We have new
That,
email.
yeah, that was really one of the first things that I implemented that you taught is just like all of the little sounds that happen all of the time for texts and I mean, who knows how many we have turned on. I know when we first talked, I'm embarrassed to say how many I have turned on. Like LinkedIn is dinging me and Facebook and my email and the text and this like all the time. No wonder I'm constantly distracted.
Yeah,
The other like amazing gift you gave me is every time I looked at my inbox before, I got stressed out because there were hundreds of emails sitting there, um,
yeah,
judging me, just
yeah.
judging me, right? Like,
Yes, or calling to you. Yeah,
um,
calling to you.
and so one of the things that you gave me permission to do is create a folder that's in my email server that's called Search and Find. And I just sucked all of the past emails over there in the event I might need them someday and
Right.
only address the ones that were, I think I started with the last 3 weeks and
Hmm.
then cleaned those out, putting them,
Hmm.
if they're important to save, I put them in folders to save. But then my inbox actually gets to zero on a regular basis, which I have to tell you is stress reducing.
So much so. Yeah, your inbox is for receiving and processing messages, not for storing messages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
is a
keep them
shift
if you
in
want to keep
thinking.
them. Yeah. I mean, keep them if you want to keep them, but keep them somewhere else, not in your
Right.
inbox. And nobody, it's so funny. Everybody, when I tell this to people, they're like, I don't think that's going to make a big difference. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
well, just try
goodness.
it. Just try it and see what happens. And then, like you, they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, that made such a huge difference.
Well, and I'm embarrassed to tell you, I used to pay attention, I think, to 9 different email addresses.
Mm,
Right, right. She just rolled her eyes, people. I know. It was too much. So now
I,
all of them are forwarded to one email address. I have one business address and I have one personal address because I
yeah,
don't want all the personal stuff junking up my professional one.
yeah.
And so much less to pay attention to, which
Hmm.
allows me to pay attention to things that are actually important.
Yeah. Clutter is
Weird,
distracting.
weird.
Yeah. Clutter is really distracting.
Before we leave this individual topic, and uh, there is so much more to what Mora has to offer. We are not even scratching the surface on this. It's like what we're doing wouldn't even leave a mark. But one of the other things that I found personally so helpful is when I'm processing the email, I can take care of the easy things right away. But there are things, this was always my holdup.
Mm.
I would say, "Oh, I can't do that right now," and it would sit in my inbox judging
Yeah.
me. Having a, a, a task collector program, I don't even know, I'm not using the right verbiage, but having that so I can say, I need to do this there. It is now stored. It doesn't have to be stored in my brain saying, in 2 weeks, you need to make sure you do this because I'm not going to remember in 2 weeks, or I'm going to be stressed for 2 weeks about forgetting it. It's
Mhm.
done. I can move that email into the proper folder and I have relief,
Yeah.
right? It's clear. Um, Talk about why holding everything here is such a problem.
Oh yeah, we only have a certain amount of cognitive capacity available to us at any moment. And so when we use up a lot of that with I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this. Also, we can only hold about, I don't know, somewhere between 4 and 7 thoughts kind of in our head rotating. You ever had that grocery list and you go to the grocery store and you're like, I need bananas, milk, bread, and peanuts, right? And bananas, milk, bread, peanuts, bananas, milk, bread, peanuts, right? And then you get to the checkout counter and you're like, bananas, milk, bread.
What
Uh,
was that? I'm
what was
making pad thai.
it?
I need something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so trying to hold all of this stuff just doesn't work. And our brains aren't, they don't really work on command. You can't really reach into your brain and pick out the exact thing that you need at the exact moment that you need it, right? So you were saying, I won't remember it in 2 weeks or I'll be so stressed out. What'll happen is you'll remember it for the first few days and then you'll
Hmm.
remember it in like 4 weeks.
Yeah, and have that horrible feeling like, ah,
Right. I didn't do
yeah,
it. Yeah.
right.
And because right when we need something is really like the moment that probably we can't think of it often. So we need a better place, and leaving it in your inbox isn't super helpful because then you just have this, it's there, it's something. I don't really know what it is. I don't know how long
Yeah.
it's going to take me. I don't know how important it is. I don't really know what the action is. And also, trying to manage your life when you have your responsibilities, some of it's in your head, some of it's in your email inbox. That's like
Some of
trying to
it's
do a
on my to-do list on my, which I don't do anymore, thank you.
yeah, but that's like trying, even if it's only in your head and in your email, that's like trying to do a puzzle when half the pieces are in the kitchen and half the pieces are in the living room. Right.
Yeah.
And for most of us, it's not just in email and in our head. It's also on paper lists, sticky notes, maybe some
Hmm.
apps, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents,
Right,
scattered kind of all over the place. That's like trying to do a puzzle when all the pieces are scattered all over the
right,
house.
right. Not effective and
No.
super stressful. So I'm going to say, again, barely leaving a mark. What we're doing right now, Maura has amazing, amazing strategies to help get it out of your head, put it somewhere where it's actually going to be effective so that you can get what you actually need to get done. Let's move on to the tip for people to help their teams. I like this idea of defining an emergency channel, and it does actually go back to your first tip when you were talking about other people are part of the problem.
Mhm.
And like the door's closed, this is my time to get the important things done, but there probably is something that would make it appropriate to knock on that door.
Maybe.
Okay, fair.
Maybe. I challenge my clients to define for their teams what exactly constitutes an emergency or a time sensitive situation. And when they really sit down and think about it, they figure out it's really not that. There's really not that much.
Mm,
There's a lot of, I'm in the middle of this and I would like to finish. So having that piece of information now would be super helpful, but that
Hmm.
doesn't make it an emergency,
Right.
right? That doesn't really even make it time sensitive. That is, I would really like to have it now, but that doesn't constitute an emergency for other people. And
Right.
so, and then a lot of times leaders will say, but I don't want to be the bottleneck to hold up my team's work. Well, maybe you're teaching them to not be prepared when they sit down to do their work if you
Mm.
always bail them out at the last minute. But also, they probably have 8,000 other things that they can do if they can't
Right.
reach you. If they can't reach you, also, maybe they can just make their own decision and they don't need to involve you. And if you're not available, then they have to do one of those other things. So
Right.
it, it it's not being too available to your team is sometimes just as bad as being unavailable all the time.
Mm. Well, I would imagine if used well, that it would allow things like that huddle, that morning huddle or whatever, to be more effective if you knew as the team member, this is my time with the leader. I need to I need to get the information I need today from the leader now because that
Mhm.
leader is going to be unavailable for a while doing his or her own work. Might make it more effective.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that information in most cases, information in organizations can be a lot more transparent.
Mm.
And so I work with my clients to get them to the point where their team could, and I don't recommend that they do, but they could really work for days without talking to anyone else.
Hmm.
And again, I don't think that you should not talk to anybody else for days, but
Okay.
the point is you can get your work done
Hmm.
independently. Information
Mm.
is self-serve, everything you need is accessible to you, and you can do what needs to be done without having to interrupt anyone else. When you are sort of aiming for that, then you can be very intentional about when you communicate and how you communicate. And when you're
Mm.
not communicating, everybody is just heads down doing their work and therefore feeling much more productive at the end of the day.
Sure. And empowered, which is
And
which is your word. Uh,
yes,
it
yes, yes.
so I will say that having used the things that you have taught me, I do feel empowered with my own time, my own attention, and my own work product.
Mm, mhm.
And as a solopreneur, uh, I have to own that for myself, right? I don't have a boss other than my
That's
clients, which is a different kind of boss. Um, but because of what I do, that influx of communication is often where I get distracted the
yeah,
most. And this idea of an emergency channel, I often say, and I guess until we had this conversation right now, I didn't realize that I create this for my clients.
mm,
So when we're a week out for the event, I'm like, you're on deck. If you need me, you need to text me.
mhm,
Like if you need something right away, because I know
yeah,
a week out, sometimes they need to know something right away.
right,
Like
sure,
text me. I will see that faster than I will see an email. When I'm traveling, our our communication is text because it needs to be more immediate. But I don't want my clients to text me 6 months out from their event because then that just gets messy.
yeah. And I always caution about texting because it can certainly get out of hand, and then people
Hmm.
have your number, and then they're texting kinds of things. Maybe, I mean, for personally for me, um, well, there are very few things that are emergency, but you're right. If it's an event specific thing, then I'm usually checking my messages from my phone, same way I would text my I'm checking my email from my phone,
Hmm.
same way I would check my text messages. And so to me, it doesn't it could be text, but it doesn't need to be
Hmm.
because I'm going to check my email anyway, just to see. I'm just looking at that moment for is there anything about this event that I need to know?
Right, right.
So,
So working with a team and you've devised this, you've said this constitutes an emergency.
mhm.
Once they've done that work, and I would imagine working with somebody like you would be helpful to define that what an emergency really means. When you say channel, what do you mean?
Yeah. So if if an urgent or time sensitive message can be sent by chat, by email,
Mm-hmm.
by text, by voicemail, then then everybody has to treat their all of their channels, text, email, voice,
Mm-hmm.
right, as if every message is an emergency
Right.
until they know that it isn't an emergency. Because it anywhere, like something time sensitive could come in anywhere at any
Mm,
time. And so I always have to
mm,
check everything. And so I think we need to, I help leaders create communication guidelines in their organization,
mm-hmm.
and they're different during work hours versus after work hours.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm.
Um, so that because usually during a workday there are very few things that are an emergency or even time sensitive because when you go into that
Yeah,
do not disturb mode, it's not for like 2 days, right? It's for like an
right,
hour. It's, most things can wait an hour, even a couple of hours. And so there really isn't, there are very few things that are true emergencies. And by true emergency, I mean it can't wait an
right,
hour,
right.
right? And then after work, if you are sending, time sensitive things, maybe because you work with people in different time zones or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
if you're sending those things by email during after work hours, then people have to be checking their email after work. And
Yeah,
even if there aren't any emergencies, you're still getting sucked in to,
right,
kind of work stuff. And so you can't clear your mind and really disconnect in the evenings and on weekends, and that's a real
right.
problem.
Because our brains do not need our permission to start thinking about the thing that was in the email. It just does it all on its own.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
looked at the clock. Our time went so fast, so fast.
It
Here's my
did.
last question for you. If somebody is out there thinking to themselves, they would like to be like a Liz, they would like to be sleeping better, they would like to be working better, they would like to be more creative because they have removed all of the stuff that they were trying to hold in their brain and they have limited the distractions. How do they get more of Mora?
Well, now is a great time because I have an online on demand program that I typically use for my corporate clients
Mm-hmm.
to bring their new hires up to speed after I go in and train their teams. But we've just made it available to individuals this week. This week.
This
Um,
week.
this week. And so you can learn more if you go to marathomas.com/magic. Thanks for putting that up there.
Yeah.
And then you can hear about Eliz's experience. You can
Mm-hmm.
learn more about the program. If you decide to register for the program, it's deeply discounted now. And um, and for friends of Liz, you get an extra 5% off if you use the code MAGIC when you purchase, if you decide to purchase. It's a self-paced program. it's a great investment, and I am convinced that your audience will get multiples of return in the investment.
Just the better sleep.
Yeah.
Just the better sleep is worth it, honestly. And Maura, thank you
And
so much. Yes, go ahead.
let me just say, don't miss out because registration closes Saturday night at 11:59
Oh,
p.m. Eastern time. So only until
okay.
Saturday it's available for individuals.
So sneak in and get that. Get some better sleep. Maura, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate you doing this, but also I appreciate what you do for other people, and specifically what you did for me. So thank you for being here today.
Feeling is very mutual, Eliz. You do important work and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank all of you for being with us for another episode of Performance Under Pressure. We'll be back with more episodes. You can find us at performanceunderpressure.show. Have a great rest of your day. See you soon.